Thanks everyone for joining us for the Turn Up the Heat Part 2. In this session, we're going to talk about the HPE Aruba EdgeConnect portfolio. If you joined us for Part 1, I already introduced myself, but I will do it again. My name is Brandon Atchley. I'm one of the technical account managers at Ingram Micro, and I focus on the HPE Aruba portfolio with a specialized focus on the EdgeConnect. Today's session is going to be broken up into two parts. The first half is going to be a technical overview provided by myself, and then the second half, Jon Busshart is going to give us a demo of the EdgeConnect interface and the whole kind of setting things up. So let me move forward. Before we dive into the content, I flashed this screen on the first section, but I want to provide it again. This is a Aruba resource screen. We have a couple contact points here. The first three are email aliases. The HPE Aruba is the main overall alias, but the Silver Peak at ingrammicro.com would be the specific one for the EdgeConnect. Those three aliases at the top are aliases that can help you out with things like quotes, orders, ETAs, and tracking. And then the last email alias there, the Aruba Day 1 renewals at ingrammicro.com is where you'd want to go for all your renewals. On the bottom left side there, we have four of our category solution representatives. We have Mike Herb, we have Stephanie Finucane, Connor Pierce, and Danielle Williams. There are sales-focused reps that help with different areas of the Aruba business. Mike focuses on the DCN product, the data center. Steph is more focused on the EdgeConnect and SASE. Connor is more focused on the SMB Instant On, and Danielle Williams focuses on the entire Aruba business, so she kind of oversees the transactions of all aspects. Now, if we move over to the right-hand side there, we have some technical resources, of course, myself. We have Jeff Swetland, who presented the ESP portion of Part 1, and then he will also be presenting the data center on Part 3. And then we have Jon Busshart, who's going to be doing the technical demo for the second half. He also did the technical demo of the Access Security, and will be doing the technical demo for the Aruba Central on Part 3. Last thing before we dive into the content, as far as the Silver Peak portfolio or the EdgeConnect portfolio, it still does require registration to transact. So if you are not a Silver Peak partner, I encourage you to scan the QR code, or when I send out the deck, click the link and register. This will give you access to transact all the EdgeConnect and actually even the Access SSE portfolio as well. Alrighty, and let's dive into it. So last session, we ended it on talking about Access Security and SASE. So with SASE, it's the marriage between two technology portfolios, SD-WAN and SSE, the Security Services Edge. In this section, we're going to just be focusing more on the SD-WAN, things like the intelligent routing, WAN optimization, dynamic path selection. That's going to be the kind of the focus of the session today. Now I'm going to open with this kind of very big statement here. The enterprise edge is undergoing the most significant transformation in history. Now, I'm not confident personally to say that it's the most significant, but I am confident in saying that it is at least one of the most significant transformations that we've ever undergone with all of the different changes. And to kind of show you the changes we're going through, the first one being cloud, right? With the adoption of different SaaS applications, new approach of how we're doing our business as far as applications being hosted in the cloud, our data being hosted in the cloud, different infrastructure or platforms as a service that we're operating. It's given us a kind of an outlook that we need to evolve how we're transacting this business, how we're connecting our users to the cloud resources, and how we're securing these users. Next is the IoT devices. We have a huge surge of IoT devices jumping onto our networks, from things like smart light bulbs to machinery in factories to climate sensors. There's a huge number of these devices, which is just increasing the amount of vulnerabilities that we're introducing into our network, and a large, vast amount of devices that we just don't even know are in our networks now, which is causing us to need to have better visibility of the devices that connect to our network, along with how we're securing them and locking them down so that way they don't become a vulnerability for our network. And then this last one, the hybrid and remote work, which was hyper sped up based because of COVID, the pandemic, right? A lot of companies were moving towards this type of environment, but a lot of them were forced into doing some Band-Aid type solutions to maintain a working, status quo for their users. And now that we're, coming out of it, a lot of these companies are looking at a more permanent solution to connect their users, but also maintain a certain level of security and compliance to, continue transacting. So these three are major changes and evolutions that we have to go through that SASE and SD-WAN is solving for us. And with that, the race against the dissolving perimeter has begun. So as we've moved into these new, technologies, adopting different cloud resources, adopting new IoT sensors and devices, and a new working strategy for our users, we need to evolve how we're connecting and how we're maintaining all of these users and data. So when we look at the kind of traditional approach as how we did everything, we did this legacy castle and moat architecture where we felt that as long as we built our perimeter security, we put everything in our data center and we built these massive firewalls and all of these security solutions and then just connected our users into that solution, we were safe. Well, with the rising cost of MPLS connections and more of our workforces being remote and connecting into cloud solutions, it's time to think of new ways and better ways to connect them. And that's where the SASE solution is kind of dominating and becoming the go-to solution for a lot of organizations to help them solve the need for these new connections, where the then was the castle and moat mentality, whereas the now is let's connect our resources and our users to the data direct rather than having to connect into these data centers. So with that, we need to figure out how to transact and how to secure them. We put the security layer right in the cloud with those resources. So wherever you're connecting from or, to, you have the security, that you're going to transact through because it's living as a security layer right in the cloud. And with that, we can intelligently route our users and our data to where we need to connect. If our users need to connect to resources that still live in a data center, we can transact them direct and make it intelligent by, doing like internet breakouts or utilizing different SD-WAN or SSE technologies to help secure and maintain the most optimized connection with the lowest latency and, the best path conditioning. Now, when we look at this, we look at the unified SASE through Aruba. So the unified SASE is approach where we're marrying two technologies that Aruba owns together, the EdgeConnect SD-WAN from the Silver Peak acquisition, where we have different things like SD-WAN gateways, or even technologies that we're rolling into it, like the micro branch from our instant APs, our wraps, that we're kind of wrapping into the whole EdgeConnect architecture. And then we layer it with the SSE for the cloud portion like ZTNA, SWIG, and CASB. And when we marry these two solutions together and we have them tightly integrated, we get that true unified SASE approach, so we're end-to-end secured and optimized. Now let's take a look deeper into the EdgeConnect portfolio and how it looks. So there's multi-tier here on how the EdgeConnect solution rolls out. The first and the foremost, the most intelligence is the orchestrator. The orchestrator is our single pane of glass management where we're going to be putting all of our policies in. It's going to do all the intelligence, host the licensing. This can be rolled out in multiple ways. You have an on-premise solution that you can download the virtual image and you can deploy it inside your virtual farm that you have in your data center. You can take that same image and you could put it in the public cloud in the Azure AWS instance that you already pay for and have deployed. Both of those solutions are at no cost. You have the ability to download those images and deploy them as you see fit. And then there's a third one as a service. So if you don't want to have to worry about deploying it, maintaining it, and updating it, you can simply have it hosted in the Aruba cloud for you and just be given a portal that you're going to log into and manage your equipment. And this is the most important piece of it because this is where all the intelligence live. When we go down to the second layer, we have the actual appliances. These are the gateways that we're going to put into the different locations or put into the cloud. We have a number of physical appliances, which we'll get into in the next slide, to range from smaller locations up to bigger data centers. We have the virtual image that if you want to just spin up in your virtual infrastructure and kind of maybe segment certain parts of your network, you can do that as well. And then that same virtual image can be hosted in all the major cloud platforms. So if you don't want to have to leverage Azure, AWS's VPN, or kind of express gateway to get into their cloud entity, you can just deploy an EdgeConnect there and have better visibility and control over your data. Now, those two pieces is the core of the deployment, along with the licenses that go with it to enable the different bandwidth. However, we have two additional licensed features that you can enable as well. We have first the WAN optimization. So if anybody knows of Silver Peak's history, historically they were a WAN optimization company. They were one of the best of breeds in terms of WAN optimization. And when they seen the markets changing and moving to more of an intelligent and SD-WAN type, kind of solution, they took their WAN optimization foundation and they built on top of it and evolved into an SD-WAN space, but they still kept that WAN optimization component. So we can enable that if we still have a demand for WAN optimization. Now that one I consider an optional piece. There may be not something that you need all of your locations. However, you may still have some branch locations that don't have the best WAN links, or you may have like a certain subset of application that you want to boost and optimize the traffic set for. You can deploy that as needed. Now, this last one, the Advanced Security Dynamic Threat Defense, this is a service that enables the intrusion detection and prevention. It's listed as optional. However, personally, when I'm going and I'm looking at replacing a branch firewall, this is not a service that I kind of market as optional. In order for us to really replace a branch firewall, intrusion detection and prevention is a much needed component of that to really be considered a firewall solution. However, that is still an optional piece if you don't want to deploy it at certain locations. And that is the unified kind of platform for the EdgeConnect, and kind of in a nutshell how the whole EdgeConnect system works. Now, if we take a look at the appliances, there's a number of appliances. We go from a small, an ultra small unit that can go up to 200 megs, all the way up to an extra large unit that can do 10 gigs, right? So we have a vast range of capabilities, to kind of handle all of the different, locations that you may have. And traditionally, it was easy to kind of go through these because they were T-shirt sized. We had the US, XS, S, M, L, and HL, which was ultra small, extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large, which was easy. However, with some of the newer hardware refreshes, we see models like the 101004 and the 101006 coming to market. And if you look at the 101006, it looks very similar to the extra small. I'm a betting man. I would say that the extra small is probably going to get migrated over to the 101006, but there is nothing official as of today where that's going. All right, now let's talk about some adoption drivers, which we've talked about some already with things like the cloud and IoT. And the first bullet there is the demand for cloud applications. However, it's not just the fact that you're buying cloud, so we need SD-WAN. It's that we're buying cloud and we want to increase the performance, and we want to change how the network's built, because nobody likes it when the users are complaining that the application sucks, right? Hey, we moved to this cloud application and now it's very slow and laggy. And some of that comes from just having it tunneled through a data center. We were going through a corporate data center firewall and it had to send out to the web rather than living in a resource that used to live behind the firewall. So moving to an SD-WAN solution that can connect right to those cloud resources and optimize the connection by taking a look at those links is one of the big drivers for SD-WAN. The next is a lot of companies are looking at looking at zero trust and SASE. When we look at the zero trust architecture, that's all about a matter of if we get hacked, not when we get hacked, not if, right? A lot of the mentality used to be like, hey, I'm going to make this security solution to where I can't get hacked. And that's just not feasible, right? There's so many vulnerabilities and attack vectors that we can look at now that it's not about if we're going to get hacked, it's more of when and what we can do to reduce it when it happens. And that's the whole strategy for zero trust, is to lock down those networks. And then when we look into the overarching SASE, right, we're combining things like zero trust into optimizing how we're connecting and making sure we're secured from every single point of the connection. Now, these last three bullets, I kind of like to talk about as if they were one, because they kind of domino right into each other. But when we go to an SD-WAN solution like EdgeConnect, we can simplify our devices and consolidate, because the EdgeConnect appliances are full-featured routers, full-featured firewalls, and WAN optimization appliances. So in locations where you might have had a dedicated firewall with a router because it was route intensive and you needed 2 devices, or small location that still needed a WAN optimization appliance with your firewall, you had multiple operating systems and potentially multiple teams that had to manage it. So when we move to the EdgeConnect solution, we reduce that complexity, right? We move into an orchestration piece, which is going to be a single pane of glass management. So it's going to reduce the amount of man hours needed to manage it, deploy it. And then we go into that last bullet point there, where because we're reducing the amount of equipment, there's less infrastructure that we need to support, less support contracts that we need to maintain on them, less personnel that we have to worry about because of the reduced infrastructure. And then the reduced infrastructure is less connectivity. So just simply the ports that we're connecting into the network is reduced because we have fewer devices that we're connecting. Now, this is the first slide that kind of highlights the power behind the EdgeConnect solution. And this is what's called business intent overlays. And when Jon does his demo, he'll click through the screen and show you how it actually looks in the configuration panel, whereas this one is a more prettied version, just kind of highlight different areas of it. So this is highlighting that we're breaking it up into 3 kind of categories. We have the real-time applications, we have the enterprise applications, and then we have everything else. Real-time applications are things like Zoom or Ring Central, Teams that we're utilizing right now for like video conferencing and voice. And we can determine how it's leveraging the different internet circuits and different firewall, right? So if it's maybe something that's living on site that we're hosting our own, maybe a UC, then we would do something like an MPLS circuit to connect back to the data center that's hosting it. And we would do like the best circuit, and we'd do the data center firewalls. Now, if it's something cloud-based like Ring Central or Teams that we're hosting in the cloud, instead of using an MPLS circuit to go to the data center for the data center firewalls, we would just leverage the internet, like the broadband connections, because those are ultimately going to be faster. And combining them together, we can get as an MPLS-like circuit. We can do like a local firewall at that specific location just to do services like intrusion detection and prevention. But ultimately, because of these services, we want it to be the best possible. So we're going to kind of reduce and maintain, the best quality. Now, when we move down to the enterprise applications, these are things like CRM tools or OneDrive, Office, things like that, where if they're hosted again on site in a data center, we would leverage our MPLS or internet circuits, and we'd have like an adaptive connection so that way it can break out as needed. But then when we're doing services that are cloud hosted, we're going to tell it to use those broadband circuits to get the best connectivity. And then we're going to layer something like an SSC vendor on there. So that way we're putting our security right in the cloud with those resources. And then we can leverage things like CASB to give us extra security on top of it to do like data loss prevention and kind of restrict what users are able to do in the cloud, which traditionally you can't with just an on-site firewall. And then in that last layer there, we're looking at the everything else. This is just general internet traffic, YouTube, social media, guest networks, things like that. We're probably, we're not going to use an MPLS circuit, whether it's, local or remote. We're going to just have it use the broadband circuits, and then we're not really going to leverage any heavy firewalls. We would maybe use the SWIG in the SSE platform just to do like URL filtering and kind of lock it down. Now, the reason I went through all this is kind of the most heavy slide I have in this deck, is because there's a lot of power behind this single business intent overlay. Because when you configure them, you're going to deploy these out to your entire network, and it's going to maintain and keep a global policy. So when your security settings change or something gets added to it, it's constantly monitoring and maintaining this through all of your locations. So you're always staying in sync across the board. There's not a time where you have these patch cycles or there's update windows where you have to go and update different locations. And if you fat finger something or mess up on one of the locations, that could be a vulnerability for that specific location that we never even knew about. Whereas with this, it's constantly maintaining and monitoring all of those settings that you configure one time, and then it's pushing it out to all your locations. So that way you're not having to duplicate it multiple times, or you don't have to have a golden config file that you're kind of manipulating for each and every location that needs something unique. You can do it all through the business intent overlays. Next, we're going to talk about some of the optimization features like path conditioning, WAN optimization, and real-time applications, and how we're doing like tunnel bonding. And this is the kind of the best way of representing it. So in this case, we have two internet links. These are just broadband circuits. We're not leveraging like an MPLS circuit. And um, standalone, they might have drop packets, or they might have issues where packets are received out of order, whatnot. But when we bond them together and we can create a tunnel bond between it, we can make an overlay network that's 100% healthy. And how we're doing that is we're utilizing features like forward error correction and packet order correction. So with parity packets sent between the two broadband links, I can make sure that if the packets were lost on transmission, there was parity packets sent on a secondary link. And as long as I receive those parity packets, I can still rebuild the whole transmission and pass it along like nothing ever happened. So my applications don't even know there was a hiccup because I'm rebuilding that within the EdgeConnect appliances. Or let's say they are received out of order. So a traditional router or firewall, if I receive the packets in a different order they were sent in, I don't know how to put them back together. So I ultimately drop it and ask for a resend. With the EdgeConnect appliances being able to send different things like checksums to make sure it knows exactly how it's supposed to be, it can put everything back in order and pass that along like nothing ever happened. So I don't have to do that resend and drop in, it disrupts the flow. So for things like VoIP or video, that's when you start getting like a robotic voice, or that's when you start getting degraded video signal. And we're leveraging these technologies to make sure that our overlays are 100% up. Next is the boost. So this is the WAN optimization piece. And my favorite in this is the data reduction, but we do also have TCP protocol acceleration. In the data reduction, though, I love the fact that it kind of plays on like the storage world. So if you ever do like backup where you're deduping your data to compress it and make it smaller, that's what the WAN optimization can do. So when we're transmitting, maybe larger files from location to location, we can dedupe it and then uncompress it at the second location. So that way, ultimately, the data that was sent is reduced, and we're receiving it a lot quicker. So that way, it's not clogging up the pipe for, maybe larger files that a branch location's requesting from a data center. The next piece, and this one is always one of my favorites because I call it like GPS for cloud connectivity. And that's when me as a user is trying to access some type of cloud resource, right? My gateway might have multiple WAN connections that are allowed and chosen as its main path, but which one do I use? Is there just a default? Do I just use ISP1? And then next might be an SSE, right? A cloud security that I'm going through as well. Now, with access security, we have multiple points of presence. So we're in all the major data centers and all the major cloud providers. So there's multiple paths I can choose. So what this is essentially doing is it's GPS routing all of the different internet connections and the cloud providers, and it's scoring them, and it's letting you use the best optimal path to connect to your cloud resources. It's not just doing like a geographical DNS lookup and taking you to those resources based off of what's closest to you. It's actually measuring all of those different paths and making you use the fastest one. So maybe today ISP2 with the Atlanta data center with SSE is the best. Maybe tomorrow ISP3 in the Dallas is the best, right? It's going to constantly do that measuring and maintain the most optimal connection for you. Now, we talked a little bit about the consolidation piece. This is just to kind of highlight that a little bit more, right? With the different services and security services that we have in there, which the security piece I'll talk about on the next slide, the integrations with the SSE to get that unified SASE. We also do integrations with other SSE vendors. So if you already are deploying something like maybe Zscaler, we can fully integrate into that solution as well to make you allow you to use best of breed. We have the full routing, stack, so it's not like you're losing anything, be it BGP or OSPF. And then with the EdgeConnect solution, one thing that people kind of overlook sometimes is the visibility and reporting you get from it, because it's going back to that orchestrator. I get a lot better visibility into my network because it's all being joined into that one dashboard rather than having disjointed routers or firewalls at different locations where I don't really get a big picture of everything going on in my network. Now let's look at the firewall features. For the whole stack of the next generation firewall, we have different things like stateful packet inspection, deep packet inspection, role-based URL filtering, right? It has the whole stack that a next generation firewall needs, and to prove it, Aruba was actually the first vendor that got the ICSA Labs certificate. So what that essentially means, ICSA Labs created this test process for secure SD-WAN. What they essentially did is they took the certification process that they traditionally had for firewalls that like companies like Palo Alto or Checkpoint would utilize, and then they took this certification process that SD-WAN vendors would go, and they essentially smushed them together and said you have to pass both to be secured SD-WAN. And Aruba was the first one that went through this and certified that they could handle all of the next generation firewall features along with all the SD-WAN features. Couple more slides and then I'll hand it over to Jon. This slide I like to highlight on the fact that the EdgeConnect solution has integrations with ClearPass. So we can look at all of the different components that we can do from a application standpoint or URL, DNS, ports, right? And we could do that really well with the EdgeConnect appliances, and we can make it application driven to massage and move our data, right? So with our business intent overlays, but we're missing the big, piece of context driven, right? We don't know what that user is, their role, their security posture. And when we can mine that data from ClearPass, we get a much better look at what that user is doing, not just what the device is doing, to be able to tell how they're supposed to interact with the network, what part of the network they're able to access. And in this slide here, it kind of shows a good demonstration of it, where we can see we have different branch locations in data center, cloud resources. We might have a POS system at different branch locations, and we can tunnel them through the SD-WAN appliances, so that way they're only able to access the transaction processing in their data center, right? And they're locked down to that. But then we look at something like the cameras, they're going to a cloud resource for surveillance head-end to be recorded, and they're locked down to that. And then we can even have the recruiters for like HR or that need to access different applications that are or different data sets that are living on premise and in the cloud. And with this context data that we're pulling from ClearPass, we can have a better connectivity for our users and our devices through the entire network, not just at a single location, through the entire thing by layering things like dynamic segmentation on top of it. And that's where we get to this full kind of cycle where we're layering the SSE with agent or agentless ZTNA and unified policies. And then we pair that into SD-WAN, which can give our locations their different connection points, whether we're connecting branch to data center, right to the cloud, and then we're pulling the data in from the ClearPass to have better visibility and insights to all the devices and users are connecting in. Now, the last slide before I hand it over to Jon to do the demo portion is just some promotions that we have for the EdgeConnect and the Access portfolios. So we have things spiffs as far as like new partner, new appointment settings. So if you're setting up an appointment with a new end user that's interested in this, you can get spiffed just by setting up that appointment. There's spiffs for utilizing new foundation licensing that they just recently released for the SD-WAN and EdgeConnect portfolio. If you have a new customer come in that hasn't transacted anything with HPE in the last 3 years, there's spiffs around that. And then for any technical people that want to get certified, there's some spiffs that go for a different level certs for like expert, professional, and associate. There's different incentives to get certified. And that is all with that. So I will turn it over now to Jon, and he will provide the technical demo of EdgeConnect.
All right, so I'm going to give you a demonstration on EdgeConnect. So like I had mentioned, I work out of the Business Transformation Center. I mentioned in our last session. I can provide these demos to you or to your end users if they're looking to understand this technology. I do support stack across HPE, so GreenLake servers, storage, as well as these networking solutions. When I look at EdgeConnect, I see three things in my mind. I see there's certainly the cloud-based resource that exists, and that's where everything kind of talks to. There's this orchestrator, and this will be the central management piece. This can be cloud-based, this can be on-prem. And then we've got the appliances over here. And these little blue icons here are the appliances. Now, I know they look a little bit different. This is actually a physical appliance, and this is a virtual appliance. So these appliances can come as physical boxes or as virtual machines as well. So a little bit more in configuring the virtual machines, but it's not all that much in the environment. That's why those look a little bit different. Just to get your head wrapped around what we're looking at here. So if I select, we're obviously on the dashboard right here. If I select up top, everything, this dashboard will reflect everything in the environment. But if I go down and select, like these individual sites could have multiple appliances in them, but if I select the site or even an individual appliance, different things are going to show differently as we look down below here. I kind of have a Futurama type of thing that we're looking at. Obviously, we could see one tunnel going from one site to another. So before I kind of dig in to this, I do have these multiple clients on these sites here that we're going to look at. But let's look at this first, and we're going to talk about how this is connected. I don't want you to commit this to memory, but it's just maybe handy if you kind of understand, where things are, what things are happening. So I'll tell you right now, this link is not up. This entire site's not up, as well as this segment's not up inside this environment, right? So we'll bring those online. Some things that are important to note, that all the clients end in 111, right? So whenever you're looking at a 111, it'll be a client. If it matters, the inside interfaces are 110. We could see that. I guess I kind of wrote over that, but that's down there. And then finally, if you look at in the third octet, if you look at the last digit, that's generally speaking the site. So 181 would be site 1. 183 would be site 3, and 182 would be site 1. I added Zoidberg on afterward. He's a little different, but we can kind of follow along with that. But that just get your head wrapped around with what we're going to do here. And I'm going to take this and we're going to bring up some things. I'm going to show you how to bring up this interface, and even we'll bring up the last slide. You see, we'll get quite a bit done working on through this. So, obviously when I first started working this product, I started looking at these menus and I started going, holy cow, there's a lot kind of going on here. What I'll tell you is don't get worried about that. I would say there's going to be a few specific points, but as we find things, they're going to open up as tabs, and those are going to be things that you use commonly within your environment. I also use this search context most of the time, right? So obviously there has to be tunnels that are created within this environment. We can kind of see the one tunnel that's connecting over here. So in the case of this, like I mentioned, Fry over here can ping Leela, and Leela can ping Fry. And we can actually see that if I go over here, right, we could see Fry can ping Leela. 111's the client, and then Leela can ping Fry, but nobody else can ping each other, right? So we'll see that. Oops. Zoidberg's down, as well as Bender's completely down. All right, so this thing's got to have tunnels. So how do I find tunnels in the menu? Well, I can just type tunnel. All right, and anything that's related to tunnels will show up. And generally speaking, this is probably a good place to start. It seems to be like the most basic, but you could certainly look around. Obviously, another tab's open, and if I log out of this and I log back in, that will exist. And right now we can see the tunnels down here. We can see Fry is talking to Leela, and Leela's talking back to Fry. And to speak about grabbing, like, so if I just grab Fry here, you'll see Fry just going to Leela. If I grab Leela here, you see Leela going to Fry. If I grab them all, we could see everything going both ways. Another thing I would like to point out is this INET1. This is a label. So tunnels automatically get created between site interfaces, we'll say, that have the same label on them. And that's kind of the magic with SD-WAN type of solutions, is being able to kind of stand up these tunnels within the environment. And these are what they'll call underlay tunnels, and they're IPsec tunnels, right? On top of that, we have overlay tunnels that exist, right? I'm going to sort this over here by the appliance so we could see this. If you notice, you got this is Fry to Leela, default overlay, critical apps, bulk apps, as well as real time. So these are, again, extra tunnels that are layered on top, and obviously this is doubled up going back, right? What these are business intent overlays, right? So we're certainly, Brandon talked a little bit about those, so we're going to want to talk somewhat about those so you can understand that. So again, I know the term's business intent overlay, If I search business intent, there it is, business intent overlay. I can also find that over here. Another tab opens up, and these are the business intent overlays. I know this is busy, but this is not all that difficult to look at. I would say as your data flows through this environment, right, it's going to hit one of these lines, and these are the priorities. So it's like an access control list. It's going to start at the top. It's going to work its way down, and the default overlay is going to be something that'll catch everything, that's not kind of caught by the above. I'll also say these are created for you by default within the orchestrator. Right, and I would use this if you're going to deploy this product. I use this as a starting point. You can certainly add new business intent overlays if you want to. Right, you could certainly modify these business intent, but this is a good starting point. Some people like to kind of, every once in a while I see somebody who kind of spins this all down or deletes everything and starts from scratch, and it's probably not the best approach. You can certainly do that if you wanted to, but this is a little bit simpler if you use what they gave you. Now, there are two sections. There's SD-WAN traffic, so it's site-to-site traffic, and then there's that breakout traffic, which goes out to the internet. If I do something like click on this square here, it opens up a window. You can see SD-WAN traffic over here, right? But we can also see this breakout traffic to the internet and cloud services. So I'm going to close this. And if I click over here on this line, all right, it just brings me up in that other tab. We're going to start our discussion over here. So if we hit the real-time set of applications, it's going to spread out the data in a mesh typology between sites, right? And I could change that if I wanted to here, right? And that typology is going to be connected. Those tunnels are going to be connected based on the label. And you can create extra labels if you wanted to, however you want. And the labels that are grouped together will form tunnels. So if site 1 has INET 1 and site 2 has INET 1, they'll form a tunnel. If site 1 has INET 1 and site 3 has INET 2, they'll start forming tunnels with each other. And those will happen automatically. In the past, tunnel creation between sites has been a difficult process, but that's kind of one of the benefits of this solution is, having these tunnels created easily. And then the priority is going to be set down below, or what they'll call a link bonding policy. So it'll be highly available. So the one thing, so people will look at this a lot of times and like, well, what invokes this real-time business intent overlay? Well, this is the matching, and these are the applications. As a matter of fact, if I edit this up here, we can see a listing of applications that exist. Right. Again, this is a good foundational spot to start your environment. You need to add a rule in here. You could certainly do that. Right, and there's a whole bunch of options that you could do to be able to configure the rules and how your traffic will flow within this environment. All right, so we'll cancel this out. All right, so that's kind of the idea behind the business intent overlay. Again, traffic can come, in for the internal SD-WANs. It also could be breakout traffic. And again, your information will come in, it'll hit one of these, and if it doesn't hit anything, it'll hit this default overlay. And if I open up this default overlay, you see it says match everything. All right, so that's kind of where these tunnels are created inside this environment, right? The underlay tunnels are based on the labels between sites, and then these overlay tunnels go on top of the underlay tunnels, and it massages traffic based on the business intent overlay. All right, so let's do some things within this environment, because that's the basic foundation. Like I told you, Bender's down, Zoidberg's down, as well as this link's down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up this link over here. All right, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this appliance. I'm going to go and I'm going to change my deployment. All right, and this should come up in a second. All right, and this is kind of like how things flow through the network. So you could see the interface. You could see the label. We could see the IP mask. That's the inside interface. Remember how we were talking about inside interfaces over here? All right, and then it goes out to the internet. You can see I have a couple connections. I have WAN 1 and WAN 2, but WAN 0 and WAN 1. WAN 1 doesn't have a label, so it's not creating any tunnels. So this link is kind of just flapping in the breeze and not doing much of anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, and I'm going to put one of the labels that were a part of the business intent overlays, and that was INET 2. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to click Save. Right, that's going to go away. And in just enough time to make somebody who likes to demonstrate a little nervous, we're going to start to see things that are going to happen over here. So we're going to go over here. Now you can see right now, both Leela and Fry have INET1 labels on them. So we could see Fry goes to Leela's through INET1, and Leela goes to Fry through INET1. But if we refresh, now we can see INET2 going to INET1 and back from Leela, INET1 to INET2. So these tunnels are starting to form on our behalf. Now, there won't be any extra business antenna overlays because we're just writing these over the labels, but at least you get an understanding that we've brought up a redundant connection in this environment. It was pretty simple to be able to do that. We'll refresh, and they're already up and running. All right, so that's great. So we've brought up a redundant connection. So we've brought up this line over here. All right, so now why don't we bring up Zoidberg? All right, so we'll bring him up. And here we'll actually add an extra connection into the environment. And then we should see some extra pings start to happen. So if you remember, right now we can ping Leela, Leela can ping Fry, but nobody can ping Zoidberg right now, including Bender's completely offline. So let's do that. So I'm going to go, since Zoidberg hangs off of an interface on Leela, we're going to do that. We're going to go over there, go back to our friend deployment. All right, we can see the same deployment that's out there, but this time we're going to add an interface. All right, this will be connected to LAN 1. If I had connected someplace different, I could certainly change that if I wanted to. And then we're going to put in the IP address, and the IP address will be the inside interface right here. Oops, I shouldn't have scratched that, the inside interface right here. All right, so let's do that. /110/24. All right, and its traffic will still flow through this label, so we shouldn't see any extra tunnels or anything kind of get built up, but we will bring this extra segment online. So I'll click save. Right, and then again, in just enough time to make me a little bit nervous, we'll start to see some pings happen over here right away. We could start to see Zoidberg's already pinging over here. We could take a look over here. Looks like Zoidberg again is pinging Leela, but the rest of this is going to start to come up in a little bit in our environment. All right, so you can see that we've kind of brought up some traffic. We've created a redundant interface. We brought an extra segment up. Now the next thing that we really want to do is we're going to want to bring up the Bender site. We're going to bring him up under site 3. So this is where we're actually going to bring up an appliance inside this environment, and we're going to bring that in here, and we're going to start forming tunnels through it. And we're going to get some things to kind of happen with that. Let me revert here. All right, let's see if our pinging has happened. Sometimes it takes a little while for some of that to kind of happen. Let's see, nothing up here. Zoidberg isn't happening yet. How about this? Oh, we're starting to ping. So looks like Fry is starting to be able to ping Zoidberg, and Leela's pinging Zoidberg. So this stuff will come up in a little bit. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time. There we go. We could see Zoidberg's hitting Fry, Zoidberg's hitting Leela. Of course, he won't hit Bender yet because Bender isn't up. So let's go bring Bender online. Now, what you have to do, since the orchestrator talks to the cloud, right, and the appliances, when they come up, they'll automatically talk to the cloud. As long as you kind of have your serial number as a part of your cloud-based resource, what will happen is the appliance will be discovered in the orchestrator. So as long as the appliance can talk to the cloud, your cloud understands that serial number, it'll present that into your orchestrator. And if I click on appliances discovered, we can see this appliance. And then I'll click approve over here. Now, some of the things are already set up here, like the appliance name and things like that, because I just reset this. But you can see as we're approving this, the first thing I want to do is upgrade the firmware. I know my firmware is up to date because I just reset this appliance. So I'm going to skip. And then it should happen. There we go. So we bring up the site. So normally I'd have to put the appliance name. I'm going to want to pick the group I want this to be a part of. So remember, these are groupings of appliances. I'm going to put his group in landing site 3. All right, and then we got to put a password in. I'll have to confirm it as always. All right, and then we could set up a region. Again, with labels, once you set a label out, tunnels will automatically start getting formed. If you have certain regions that you don't want tunnels get formed to, some people have security concerns about that, you can nail that down. So I'm going to just nail it down to our US region. And then I'm going to click next. All right, and here we got our friend, the deployment page. So why don't we work with this? Let me scooch this on over. Screen resolutions, interesting. All right, so again, LAN 1 interface, right? Segment labels, inside interface. I had to set this up. So this just gets remembered as I reset the appliance, but I'd have to put that IP address in. I will need to set a label on this. So I will select INET1, so the tunnels form between the other sites. And then you will need to plug in your bandwidth as well and calculate that out. So whatever your up and down is in your environment and calculate that. And once that's done, all right, we can click next. We can do loopback interfaces if we wanted to. We could add local routes if we wanted to. And then here's our business intent overlays. So we're going to take our business intent overlays. We're going to layer them onto this appliance. We could turn them on and off if we wanted to. Or if we created another one, we could add it. There is also a default template group, which will configure all this plus a whole ton more. These are basic settings for your appliance. You know, things like DNS, alerts, you know, just basic things, time and things like that. All right, if that's always going to be the same, you could set that up as a template. So I'm going to use our basic template, and I'm going to click apply. And it's going to go through and it's going to apply all this. There we go. It says succeed. Now it's not done yet. It's going to go through and start creating tunnels in a little bit. Again, just enough time to make me a little nervous during a demonstration, but it always comes up. But we can see Bender showing up over here. No additional tunnels are showing up yet. I could keep on refreshing this for a little bit. All right, so we're doing a lot within this little bit of time. Again, these will come up. So again, we've brought up this site over here. So we're going to completely bring up a site. We're going to bring up a segment, and we also brought up a redundant connection. And it's been about 20 minutes since I've been doing this demonstration, so we get a lot done. This is part of the magic around SD-WAN style solutions, is being able to do that. Let's go back over here. Refresh, not yet. She was going a little slow. We're starting to get some things happening over here. There'll be some errors that'll come up and they'll vanish in a little bit, but things are starting to happen. All right. I do a refresh. Oops, got to grab all the appliances. Do a refresh. Something's going on here. Hang on. Maintenance windows. Dismiss this. So we're still waiting. She will come up. Like I said, that's the part where it's just long enough to make me worried. But we'll see a whole bunch of new tunnels kind of form up over here. We'll also see some we'll also see some overlay tunnels also show up. Oh, we're starting to see them show up now. Here they go. And these are from Bender, right? And again, on these business intent overlays, actually, if we look at the underlays now, we'll probably refresh that and we'll see these are all starting to form. So this is starting to form the tunnels with the other sites while we're kind of sitting here watching this. And this usually doesn't take too long. Let's see. Almost. How about our overlays? Not yet. Let's see. Okay, so they're all up. So let's go take a look at our sites, see if anybody's pinging anybody. Probably not yet, but it should happen shortly. And let's see. So let's see, site 3, not yet, but this will start coming up. Right. Not yet. Oh, there we go. So Fry's starting to ping. I can get over here. Here we go. Leela's starting to ping as well. Zoidberg, not yet, but Zoidberg will be coming, and doesn't look like he's pinging anybody, but he's going to come up in a little bit. So we've allowed communication between all these sites at this point. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe you want to kind of limit some connectivity that's happening within your environment down to certain labels. There are firewalling rules that you can do inside this environment. I would like to see him come. All right, he's starting to come up. Now, one of the things I'd like to show is I can certainly, so RDP is a remote desktop protocol, so I can log into another system, and I can tell RDP is going to work just by doing this. So if I do RDP, and I'll actually log into one of these systems in a little bit, but if I open this up, and this will be Bender's site, I can tell I can log in because it's asking me for credentials, right? And I can also go over to Bender, and Bender's come up completely now. I can go over here and go RDP, and I can log into Fry's site. And again, it's going to ask me for my credentials, right? That may not mean a lot to you right now, but I can have communication with another system. What I'm going to do is break that now by setting up some firewall rules. And the way I can do that, so certainly this has got to have a firewall. All right, and I can start off at the zone matrix. So by default, it has this default zone that everybody uses. All right, and it's allowing it to all. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new zone, and we're going to change the zone policies. So the way I got to do that is I'm going to do firewall, and then we got zone definition. We'll add a zone. We'll add what we're going to Futurama. We'll click save. And now if I go and I look at the matrix, firewall matrix, you'll see that I have this. So the default zone can't talk to Futurama in either direction. Now, all these appliances will automatically get the default zone inside their environment. So if I apply this to an interface, Futurama to interface, I'm going to break all the communication that has happened already. So if I go over, and we'll go to Bender, and I'll go back to deployment. We'll see if this has been pushed down yet. It might take a second or two. It hasn't come down yet. We should see firewall over on this side. So let's go over to Fry, see if Fry can see it yet. Let's go to deployment. Let's see. Not yet. It's coming. Coming. Again, we could see all the tunnels that are created and the huge amount of business intent overlay tunnels that were created. And I'm just biding time here. Let's go over here. Let's go to deployment. See if she shows up yet. Yep, there we go. Firewall zone. So that shows up. So I'm going to change Bender. I'm going to give him the Futurama firewall zone so he can't talk to anybody who's using the default zone. I'm going to click save. All right. And then what we should see in a little bit is the pings are going to start to drop, going from these sites to, there we go. So we're starting to see Leela can't ping Bender here. We see Zoidberg can't ping Bender, as well as Fry can't ping Bender anymore. And if I look over here, Bender can't ping anybody. But I do want to let applications through. Like maybe I want to let RDP through. So again, before when I did RDP, all right, and I connected to this desktop, you can see now it's timing out. All right, it's not allowing me to log into that secondary site. And the same thing's true over here. So if I go RDP and I click over here, you can see I can no longer connect. So I'm going to allow RDP traffic to be able to be communicated. And this is the port for RDP. So let me grab that real quick. And then let's go back on over to our firewall matrix. And let's, instead of, I'm going to click on this deny all. I'm going to add a rule, and then I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to do this real quick. We're going to do ports, and I'm going to add that port for RDP. I'm going to click save. I'm going to click OK. And we can see we're going to allow that traffic through. And then over here, we're going to do the same thing. And then I'm going to do more options. I'll go down to port, paste that down. I'll click save. Click OK again. I'll click save one more time. So let me know that we're committing the changes. Yes, we want to do that. And now we're going to push that out. And this is going to take, again, like a few things that we've done here. It takes a little bit to kind of come on through, but this will get passed on through, and I should be able to communicate. We could try. It probably won't work yet, but we could try over here with Fry, go to RDP. If we can connect over here. Not yet. Yeah, maybe we could try Bender back to Fry. Is this going to happen yet? Yeah, not yet. It still's got to come down through. All right. Well, we can go back over here and try this. I'm trying to figure out, get one to whoever connects first. I'm trying to connect. We could try him. Not yet over here. No, it's coming. I swear. RDP. Try Fry back to Bender. Once one site works, the other one should start to work. Let's try this. There we go. So now we can see the login. And just to kind of finish this thought, if I go over here and I put in the password, right, we'll actually log into fry. So you can see we got logged out over here, and now we're in over here with this system. All right, so that's kind of my story around EdgeConnect, right? And if you think about it, we did quite a bit with this, right? We brought up a redundant link on a site. We brought up an entire segment. We even brought up an entire appliance, right, and created all the tunnels that were associated with that. And then once everybody got talking, right, we wrapped some firewall rules around, so only certain applications could make it through or communicate between these different resources that exist within this environment. So I hope you like this demonstration. Again, if you want to see more, obviously we just did a half an hour. You can do quite a bit with this product. If you want to see more, reach out and we will certainly accommodate you more. If you want to see demonstration on anything Aruba or anything HPE, I can certainly help you with that. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Brandon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jon. I always love seeing how the tunnels form, because in an older environment, you manually had to go one by one and then set up the VPN tunnels. It's always cool to see that it just kind of automatically does it. All right, you adopt it, you set your labels, and the next thing you know, you're off to the races. So really cool overview. So let me just share one last screen I wanted to show before we wrap it up for the day. And it's this one. It's a little small, apologize. But today was part 2 of the Turn Up the Heat webinar series that we focused on the EdgeConnect and SASE integrations. I hope you guys all join us for part 3, where Jeff is going to do a data center networking overview, and then Jon is going to do a dive into Aruba Central to show you that interface. But that concludes this series, or this part of the series. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days and tune in to next time.